Today, we'll explore a shocking case that occurred in China in 2015. What seemed like a normal marriage between a successful businessman and a beautiful woman took a drastic turn after just 34 days. The 5-month pregnant wife suddenly vanished, leaving her husband in a state of panic and a trail of unanswered questions. What happened to this newlywed couple? Let's dive into today's case with Crime Documentary Files. On June 18, 2015, around 10 p.m., a visibly distressed man rushed into the Nanshan police station in Shenzhen. He hurriedly reported the mysterious disappearance of his wife. According to him, they had only been married for 34 days, but his wife was already 5 months pregnant. Her sudden disappearance without a trace left him feeling anxious. Sensing the unusual nature of the case, the police immediately suspected this could be a mysterious disappearance or have an unclear motive behind it. They quickly asked the man to provide all relevant details, from the day's events to his wife's recent relationships and behaviors, hoping to find any clues that could help solve the case. The man who reported the incident was Li Bing, the chairman of a large financial company based in Shenzhen, with assets ranking among the top in the region. Not only was he famous in financial circles, but Li Bing also had significant social influence, making his wife's disappearance even more complex. According to regulations, investigations into adult missing persons usually have to wait 24 hours before proceeding. However, given Li Bing's status, the police immediately hypothesized that his wife, Zhang Shu Dan, might have been kidnapped for ransom. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, they quickly deployed investigative measures to locate Zhang Shu Dan. Meanwhile, Li Bing was asked to return home and wait for news from the authorities. Extremely worried about his wife, he had no choice but to put his trust in the police. Throughout the next day, he was consumed by fear and anxiety, waiting for police updates every minute. By the following evening, unable to wait any longer, he returned to the police station. The police said they had found Zhang Shu Dan's location. Li Bing felt a weight lift off his shoulders, but before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the police's next words plunged him into a nightmare, shattering all his hopes instantly. Initially, the police discovered that Zhang Shu Dan was still in Shenzhen, but the situation quickly became complicated when she crossed the border to Hong Kong. Shortly after, she boarded an emergency flight to Los Angeles, USA. In just one day, the events left Li Bing in a state of shock and confusion. Just over a month after getting married, why did his wife decide to leave without any explanation? His worries intensified when he discovered that Zhang Shu Dan had blocked all means of communication with him. Li Bing couldn't help but wonder if he had done something to anger her, leading to this sudden decision. To uncover the truth, Li Bing began meticulously recalling recent events. He tried to remember every small detail, from normal conversations to Zhang Shu Dan's actions that might have been overlooked. As Li Bing focused on these memories, a light suddenly flashed in his mind. Something important that he hadn't noticed before now became clear. His face slowly changed from confusion to fearful realization and shock. Filled with worry, Li Bing hurried home, feeling as if he had just discovered a clue that could change everything. Upon arriving home, Li Bing quickly went to where he kept his valuable possessions. Although he didn't intend to check immediately, when he opened the safe, he instantly felt deeply disappointed. All important documents such as ID cards, passports, property deeds, marriage certificates, travel permits for Hong Kong and Macau, house papers, and household registration books had completely disappeared. Additionally, some gold and silver jewelry were also gone. This could only have been done by someone familiar with the house, someone who knew exactly where the assets were kept and could do this without leaving any traces. At this moment, Li Bing couldn't help but face the cruel reality that his own wife, whom he had loved deeply, had deceived him so ruthlessly. Zhang Shu Dan hadn't disappeared as he thought. In reality, she had secretly taken all his assets and vanished. The disappointment and shock made him wonder why Zhang Shu Dan chose to abandon their unborn child and leave him to run away. Persistent questions haunted Li Bing's mind. Li Bing recalled the time when he and Zhang Shu Dan met. One evening, Li Bing attended a business event at a luxurious hotel in the city center. The party had a formal atmosphere but wasn't much different from other events he had attended before. After exchanging a few words with partners, Li Bing began to feel tired and quite bored. Just then, a clear voice rang out in the middle of the party, catching Li Bing's attention. A young woman with a stunning appearance and striking presence was entering. It was Zhang Shu Dan. She appeared with captivating confidence, drawing the gaze of everyone in the room, including Li Bing. Soon after, Zhang Shu Dan approached him, smiling brightly, and introducing herself as a customer director at Shenzhen Construction Bank. She said she came to the party to expand relationships with potential clients and seek business cooperation opportunities. She handed Li Bing a business card with a professional demeanor while maintaining her unique charm. At this point, Li Bing was attracted by Zhang Shu Dan's confidence and elegance. He took the card from her hand and felt he wanted to talk more with this woman. Their conversations flowed smoothly and excitingly, making Li Bing feel the party had suddenly become much more interesting. For him, this wasn't just a normal business networking event, but a memorable moment when he met Zhang Shu Dan, a woman who could make him feel attracted at first sight. While talking with Zhang Shu Dan, Li Bing gradually realized she was very different, unlike other women he had met. She not only possessed a confident, open demeanor, but what impressed Li Bing most was how she delicately cared for the person she was talking to. Each of her words was carefully chosen, creating a warm and comfortable conversation. Beside Zhang Shu Dan, he wasn't just listened to, but also understood. This was important, something very few people could do. Before leaving, Li Bing and Zhang Shu Dan exchanged WeChat information. Although the meeting was quite brief, it left him feeling intrigued and curious. Despite having a very good impression of her, with his busy work schedule, Li Bing quickly returned to his routine. As for Zhang Shu Dan, she didn't actively contact him either. Gradually, that meeting faded in his mind, becoming a beautiful but short memory that he thought he had forgotten. About a month later, Li Bing unexpectedly received a WeChat message from Zhang Shu Dan. Just 2 words, "Hello," appeared on the screen, making him hesitate momentarily, intending to ignore it without much thought. However, the profile picture showing the delicate face of the girl he met at the party unconsciously pulled him back. Curiosity suddenly flared up in his mind, prompting his fingers to touch the screen. Zhang Shu Dan only sent a simple greeting to Li Bing and tactfully expressed her hope to have a chance to cooperate with him in the future. Although the conversation was brief, her natural and graceful way of speaking made Li Bing feel a sense of warmth and closeness. Zhang Shu Dan's sweet words were like a gentle breeze passing through Li Bing's mind, stirring up an indescribable feeling of attraction. Zhang Shu Dan's friendliness and grace made Li Bing increasingly close to her. In the following days, Zhang Shu Dan frequently contacted Li Bing, talking not just about work, but also about many other issues. They occasionally went out to eat together and enjoyed happy moments together. Li Bing wasn't oblivious to Zhang Shu Dan's intentions. She was young, beautiful, and intelligent, and also showed sincere admiration for him. This attention made him unable to refuse and gradually feel attracted by her closeness and sophistication. The relationship between the two increasingly progressed well. Li Bing later learned that they were both from Tianjin. Moreover, they both graduated from Wuhan University. These commonalities seemed like a thread of destiny connecting them, making Li Bing gradually feel a special bond with Zhang Shu Dan. The joy made her no longer hide. Zhang Shu Dan revealed her fragile and vulnerable sides, as if finding a place to rely on in this man. Once, after having a few drinks, Zhang Shu Dan was slightly tipsy and began to talk about her past. She recounted that when she was only 3 years old, her parents divorced. Being a girl, she was abandoned and neglected by both. Eventually, she was adopted by an elderly couple. Although living in poverty, the couple always loved and cared for her like their own child. To not let them down, Zhang Shu Dan was determined to study hard and got admitted to Wuhan University. After graduation, she came to Shenzhen on her own to establish a career, wishing to repay the kindness she had received since childhood. Although everyone admired Zhang Shu Dan for her resilience in changing her fate by her own strength, deep inside,
She always had to face loneliness and bitterness that only she could understand. Zhang Shu Dan confided in Li Bing about her past, her eyes seeming to sink into tear-filled memories. Suddenly, she couldn't control her emotions and burst into tears. Silent tears rolled down, making the atmosphere heavy. At this moment, Li Bing couldn't sit still anymore. He stepped forward and gently embraced her in his arms.
Zhang Shu Dan leaned on his shoulder, her tears still not stopping, but her heart felt a different warmth. They looked at each other in a moment of silence, and from then on, Li Bing and Zhang Shu Dan officially became a couple. His eyes looked at her full of love and determination to protect this girl. After some time together, Zhang Shu Dan became an important part of Li Bing's life. Every day she cared for and inquired about him, never missing any opportunity to make him feel loved. Sometimes she would come to Li Bing's house, spending time cooking dishes Li Bing liked, cleaning the kitchen, and arranging everything neatly. Li Bing felt a genuine warmth from Zhang Shu Dan that he had been lacking in his many years of living alone. Her devoted care revived the feeling of family that he thought he had long forgotten. In November 2015, Zhang Shu Dan, with determined eyes, told Li Bing about her wish to move in and live together. Li Bing was a bit surprised but didn't hesitate to immediately agree with Zhang Shu Dan. He also felt happy to have her by his side. Not long after Zhang Shu Dan moved in with Li Bing, she began to get busy with bank work. The pressure of work made her unable to spend as much time caring for Li Bing as before. Li Bing also understood the current situation and always loved, cared for, and sympathized with her. The shared life of Li Bing and Zhang Shu Dan was very sweet. Zhang Shu Dan, with her gentleness and care, created a living environment that made Li Bing, who had been single for many years, feel happy and comfortable. Li Bing was 10 years older than Zhang Shu Dan. But the age difference didn't create a gap. Instead, it added to the warmth in their relationship. After some time, Zhang Shu Dan decided to quit her bank job to spend time taking care of Li Bing, from preparing meals to paying attention to every detail in his daily life. Zhang Shu Dan's weekdays didn't have much to do, so she often used her free time to go shopping. When Zhang Shu Dan liked a luxury item, she just needed to give Li Bing a little hint, and he would easily pay for her to buy it. Li Bing's generosity made Zhang Shu Dan feel loved. One day, when Li Bing just returned home after a stressful day at work, he saw Zhang Shu Dan waiting for him right at the door with an excited and thrilled expression. Zhang Shu Dan rushed to Li Bing when he entered the house. She smiled radiantly and announced that she was pregnant. This good news made Li Bing extremely happy. He couldn't believe his ears, mixed emotions flooding his heart. Seeing Li Bing's joyful reaction, Zhang Shu Dan also felt very satisfied. At this moment, she quickly proposed something important: marriage. Zhang Shu Dan stood in front of Li Bing with a hopeful smile, while Li Bing looked at her quite calmly. When hearing Zhang Shu Dan's proposal for marriage, Li Bing became more silent. Having gone through many difficult years to rise from humble beginnings, he knew that marriage wasn't just about the feelings between two people, but also affected property issues. Therefore, Li Bing said that marriage couldn't be rushed, and both of them needed to consider carefully. Zhang Shu Dan noticed the seriousness in Li Bing's words. However, she didn't show anger, but instead showed understanding and advised him not to worry too much. Zhang Shu Dan was not only knowledgeable, but also understanding. In Li Bing's heart, the trust in his relationship with Zhang Shu Dan became increasingly solid. Although they couldn't get married immediately, Li Bing was still willing to support Zhang Shu Dan materially. He believed that with their child together, becoming a family was just a matter of time. After a few weeks together, Zhang Shu Dan suddenly informed Li Bing that her grandmother was in critical condition, so she needed to return home to visit her. Although Li Bing very much wanted to go back to her hometown with her, he was too busy with work and couldn't go with her. He gave her a credit card and hoped she would feel more at ease when taking care of her family. Afterwards, Zhang Shu Dan stayed in her hometown for over a month. During this time, Li Bing called many times to check on her and hoped she would return soon. But every time she burst into tears because her grandmother's health condition still hadn't improved, and the credit card he gave her was almost out of money. Her voice was full of worry and fatigue, making Li Bing feel heartache. Immediately after hanging up the phone, he immediately transferred her a large sum of money, hoping this would help reduce her burden somewhat. Not long after returning, Zhang Shu Dan continued to mention marriage to Li Bing. This time, she not only talked about the future, but also emphasized that the child in her womb was growing, and her family back home was also starting to worry about her stability. They wanted her to have a happy family life soon. These words made Li Bing unable to keep his calm as before. Thinking about the child about to be born and wanting a stable life, he agreed to Zhang Shu Dan's marriage proposal. In a short time after that, they completed the marriage registration procedures and officially became a legal couple. After the wedding, Zhang Shu Dan expressed her wish to buy a house in her hometown so her grandparents would have a more comfortable place to live. This request came from filial piety, so Li Bing didn't hesitate to agree. He decided to spend 500,000 yuan, about $77,000, to buy a house in Hanzhong. He even suggested putting both their names on the property ownership papers as an expression of sincere love and long-term commitment in their relationship. He hoped their life would become increasingly happy in the future. One day, Zhang Shu Dan proposed buying another house for the two of them because she wanted them to have their own private space. Li Bing saw the longing in Zhang Shu Dan's eyes, and she was also carrying his child, so he immediately agreed. He paid a down payment of 7 million yuan, about $1.08 million, to buy a house worth 30 million yuan, about $4.62 million, in the Nanshan area. And of course, this house was in Zhang Shu Dan's name. A few weeks after buying the house, Zhang Shu Dan said she didn't want to stay at home as a housewife anymore and wanted to help Li Bing make money. She asked Li Bing to transfer more money so she could start an online business. Seeing his wife's determination, Li Bing didn't hesitate to withdraw 2.74 million yuan, about $422,000, from his savings and transfer it to Zhang Shu Dan's account. Immediately after receiving the money, she quickly prepared to go out to make a certificate of deposit at the bank and told Li Bing she would buy some food to prepare dinner. Li Bing offered to go with her, but was refused, so he could only stay at home and wait for her. By evening, Zhang Shu Dan still hadn't returned. Li Bing felt worried and paced back and forth in the living room. He had called and texted Zhang Shu Dan, but received no response. With each passing minute, Li Bing's worry increased. He stood by the window looking out into the dark night, anxiety clearly visible on his face. As night fell and the unease grew, around 10 p.m., Li Bing hurriedly went to the police station to report that his wife, Zhang Shu Dan, had gone missing. After the investigation results came out, the police announced that Zhang Shu Dan had not only disappeared, but was also a sophisticated fraudster who used many tactics to deceive others. These words were like a shock to Li Bing. He stood motionless, stunned by what he had just heard. Since Zhang Shu Dan left home, Li Bing was shocked to discover that all his important documents had been taken by her. Due to their ongoing marriage, Zhang Shu Dan could easily sell his assets, including properties in his name. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Li Bing didn't have time to dwell on his sorrow and immediately reported the incident to the police. He asked them to investigate Zhang Shu Dan's actions to protect his interests and prevent any illegal transactions she might attempt. After accepting the case, the police quickly began investigating Zhang Shu Dan to clarify everything and ensure Li Bing's assets weren't illegally lost. During the investigation, the police quickly uncovered secrets about Zhang Shu Dan that Li Bing never knew. Zhang Shu Dan was once an outstanding student at Wuhan University, known for her captivating beauty and honored as the school's beauty queen. During her college years, she attracted the attention of many young men, but with her refined taste, she chose a boyfriend from a prestigious family and married him right after graduation. However, married life wasn't what she had hoped for. Her mother-in-law didn't accept her rural background and always created difficulties. Meanwhile, her husband was a weak man, always dependent on his family and controlling all of her expenses. Since marriage, Zhang Shu Dan's daily life had become suffocating and lacking in freedom. As a result, she increasingly felt frustrated and wanted to escape. The breaking point came when Zhang Shu Dan discovered her husband was having an affair. She decided to file for divorce and negotiate a large compensation to seek freedom and stability for herself. After the divorce, Zhang Shu Dan faced difficult circumstances with no stable income. Although she had divided assets with her ex-husband, the money wasn't enough to cover her daily living expenses. In this situation, Zhang Shu Dan decided to establish a health management technology company to seek a new source of income. She recruited over 10 young women and trained them professionally to seduce wealthy and single men. Among the men she targeted were many bank employees. Taking advantage of their relationships with VIP clients, Li Bing was one of the targets Zhang Shu Dan chose to execute her plan. When he learned the truth about Zhang Shu Dan, Li Bing felt dizzy and extremely angry. He was not only shocked by the secrets Zhang Shu Dan had hidden, but also felt hurt by her deception during their courtship. This deception made him doubt whether the child in her womb was really his. In his anger, Li Bing demanded the police do everything to catch Zhang Shu Dan and bring her to justice. However, Zhang Shu Dan had fled abroad, and tracking her down and bringing her to court became an enormous challenge. When the case stagnated with no progress for a long time, Li Bing decided to conduct his own investigation. To start, he remade all his personal documents and quickly filed a petition to the court to freeze the ownership rights of the properties Zhang Shu Dan had seized. At the same time, he hired a private detective to investigate and pinpoint Zhang Shu Dan's exact location in the U.S. After the situation became tense, Zhang Shu Dan became the center of a controversial and conflicting story. Li Bing, having just experienced betrayal and loss of assets, was trying to reclaim justice and his seized property. The accusations he made caused Zhang Shu Dan to become the target of public criticism. However, Zhang Shu Dan didn't sit idly by. She realized that only decisive action could help her escape this difficult situation. With her intelligence and cunning, she diverted attention from Li Bing's accusations by using the internet to rebuild her image. She not only relied on old relationships, but also actively created a new image for herself on social media. On social media, Zhang Shu Dan crafted an image of herself as a pitiful pregnant woman enduring suffering. She posted a fake article online, portraying herself as a victim of persecution and injustice. This article not only contained heartbreaking stories, but also warned people to avoid calls from phone numbers ending in 4444, creating a wave of doubt and confusion in the online community. These fake posts and information not only damaged Li Bing's reputation, but also threatened his company. From a respected and successful person, Li Bing now faced harsh criticism from public opinion. His reputation was tarnished, and his career became the target of false information attacks. All his efforts to restore his honor and regain justice seemed futile when faced with Zhang Shu Dan's sophisticated schemes. While Li Bing was fighting to reveal the truth and protect his reputation, Zhang Shu Dan continued to rely on social media to reinforce her image as an oppressed victim. Facing a crisis of honor and career, Li Bing not only had to deal with personal betrayal, but also fight a complex media battle. Zhang Shu Dan not only showed no remorse, but also deliberately slandered Li Bing. At this point, his anger surged more intensely than ever before. Pushed into such a situation, he could do nothing but intensify his investigation efforts. This process lasted for 5 grueling years. During that time, after giving birth, Zhang Shu Dan began a life of constant hiding. She continuously moved to avoid the private detective Li Bing hired, making it extremely difficult to track her down. Each of Li Bing's advances was overshadowed by Zhang Shu Dan's intelligence and cunning, making the pursuit increasingly tense and exhausting. Finally, after years of relentless investigation, Li Bing learned a painful truth. The child Zhang Shu Dan had given birth to was not his. Instead, the child's father was Lin Qin, a member of her fraud gang. Lin Qin was not only the child's father, but also a key accomplice who had helped Zhang Shu Dan carry out a series of illegal property transfers. This discovery not only made Li Bing collapse from the pain of betrayal, but also revealed the truth about the sophisticated fraud network Zhang Shu Dan had painstakingly built. Each piece of the story made him increasingly realize the cruelty of the trap he had unwittingly fallen into. After discovering the truth about Lin Qin, Li Bing immediately changed his tactics. Instead of continuing to pursue aggressively, he decided to mislead the enemy by pretending to be desperate and declaring defeat. He appeared tired and hopeless, no longer hiring people to follow them, but instead waiting for the right opportunity. Believing that Li Bing had truly given up, Lin Qin carelessly returned to Shenzhen to prepare to sell the house in the Nanshan area that he held. However, as soon as Lin Qin set foot back in his hometown, he had no idea that he had fallen into the perfect trap set by Li Bing and the police. As soon as he arrived in Shenzhen, Lin Qin was immediately surrounded and arrested by the police, ending the fugitive life of the accomplice in this sophisticated fraud case. When Lin Qin was arrested, Zhang Shu Dan became panicked. Knowing that there was no one left to rely on, she began to feel loneliness enveloping her in a foreign land. Her life now consisted of long days of hiding, from Los Angeles to the desolate desert areas of the Philippines. During her escape, Zhang Shu Dan changed her identity and tried to start a new life. She quickly approached and seduced a man, hoping he would be a companion to help her escape the encirclement of those hunting her. However, she had no idea that the man had been bought off by Li Bing's private detective beforehand. All her movements and locations were under control and closely monitored. Finally, with the support of international police and Li Bing's relentless efforts, Zhang Shu Dan was arrested at a small airport just as she was about to leave the United States once again. Zhang Shu Dan had spent 5 consecutive years living in hiding, but eventually she couldn't escape the punishment of the law. After a long search, she was arrested and brought to trial in the US and sentenced to 65 years in prison. She will spend the rest of her life in the Tucson Women's Prison, located on the border of Arizona, a remote and isolated place. Zhang Shu Dan's extraordinary intelligence and determination in rising from a girl with difficult circumstances to an excellent university student cannot be denied. But instead of using those qualities to do good things, she chose the path of deception and greed. However, no matter how intelligent and cunning she was, she would eventually face the appropriate punishment of the law for the actions she had committed. And that's the story for today. What do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments section below the video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.